In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make your very own business card holder, because if you're anything like me, you don't know what to do with the darn things and you're always forgetting to put them out on display. So if I have something that goes on the table, I likely won't forget the cards, I'll forget the display stand. Anywho, let's get going. So this is the Burnlab A20 Pro. It came with the honeycomb, it came with a protective sheet for my table so I'm not dumb and end up cutting into my table. And it did have to be assembled. Now the thing about the assembly is I don't want to go over those kinds of details like in the front of a project video. So if you stick around at the very end, that's where I put the assembly steps and my commentary on the laser in general. I want to focus on the project at the front end of the video, and then if you are a laser enthusiast such as myself, you can skip to the end to see more details on like how I had to put it together. So let's take a look at the project and where I got it. Designbundles.net is a great place that I like to go to find designs that I can use for several different kinds of projects. And I was looking for free designs that would be good for this video, and I found the business card holder by Fly Design, and they are generous enough to offer it for free, and I thought, well, this will be a good one. I will leave the link to the project in the description below if you would also like to make your own. There are several different designs that are in the project, and of course I have selected the cat. It's a little hard to see, so we'll go ahead and just open that image up. That's about as good as it can get in terms of zooming in. So I went with a cat, and we're going to cut that one out. I already have it prepped in Lightburn, so let me get in there and I'll show you how that's set up. So here you can see the file set up currently in Lightburn. We are going to be using a new diode laser today. It is the Burnlab A20 Pro. It is a 20-watt diode laser that was graciously sent to me for testing out and reporting back. It comes with the air assist, so that's going to be really critical for us, and that's also why I chose to do a project that is primarily cutting and not necessarily engraving. The only thing that I'm going to do slightly differently with this project is I'm going to ungroup the cats here for a quick second and then select the portions that are black, and you can do that by doing shift and click on the layer. I'm going to right click and duplicate, and you'll be like, kittens, what is wrong with you? And then I'm gonna set those to green. So the thing about, the thing is with these is sometimes when you engrave, it doesn't necessarily have a really good sharp edge appearance. So if you go back over it and you do a very light score line on it, boop, like that, there are settings, then you'll be able to see that edge much more clearly, and it'll have a really nice sharp appearance to it. Here is the project setup. I don't have the machine on just yet because I want to make sure I show you all of the setup here, so you can see that I've got my 3mm wood set up for the project on the honeycomb tray. I don't currently have any pins that will hold this down, so I've just used masking tape to kind of keep it in place. Most of the pins that I have are for much larger honeycombs or for tighter honeycomb patterns, so I can't really get it to do what I need it to do to keep it down. And actually, since I see it still kind of popping up there, I'm going to go ahead and go down this way. Never be afraid to use the masking tape, seriously. It's like, it's not a weakness to admit that you need to use masking tape. So I use that just to make sure that this wood stays level, because if you don't have the wood set down level on the honeycomb tray, then your focus is going to be completely off when you go to engrave and cut, and it will just look bad. If we pop back into Lightburn really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and orient it to these sides. So I'm going to take this whole design by selecting everything and then holding shift, so that I move in 15-degree increments, and just to have it completely shifted over like this. I'm also going to set this to user origin, with the origin being in the top right corner, because I know per my layout with the wood that I have set up right now in the honeycomb, that's going to be where I want it. Cool. So now that you have a general overlay of everything and you understand the design that I'm going to be doing, I am gonna go ahead and I'm gonna manually move the laser head into place, but I'm not gonna do it by sliding it there because that would throw the controller off. The controller would not know where it's supposed to be when you start it up, and it'll think that if you move it back here that it's gonna be at 0, 0, 0. Not good. The other thing is I need to focus it. So before I turn it on, I'm going to manually move the laser head over. You can do this while it's on. It's just easier to do when it's off, and then slide it back to origin. They do provide me with this little piece of acrylic. It is a 6mm acrylic, so 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to loosen the knob on the top of the laser head like this. And then I'm going to slide this down. And the important thing about focusing these lasers, any laser really, is to ensure that you put the measuring tool on top of the material. If you do it over here or on the table here, your focus is going to be wrong and you're going to get really bad results. So you just want to lower the laser head and then tighten, not over tighten, but tighten the screw in the front, and that's just going to harness it in place. And then you can wiggle, wiggle, wiggle that little piece of acrylic out. Now we're going to slide this back up and over to where the actual origin of the machine is when you cut it on. All right, we're gonna power it on. To power it on, you need to make sure that this emergency stop button is up. You just press and twist it to the right, and if you ever need to, press the red button to stop it from killing everything in your household and setting everything on fire. I haven't done that yet. We're gonna press the power button and power it on. And then, we're going to go back to the air compressor unit, and we're going to twist it to the right to crank up some of the airflow. Now, I don't need it too high for the engraving part, but once I get to the part where it's going to start cutting, I'm going to crank it really high. You may notice that this little protective cover that goes over the laser head is pretty darn big, and it covers the whole thing, and it doesn't pop up, it doesn't pop off. Makes things a little difficult. Doesn't really help too much that on the front panel here there's actually a one-way mirror. So I actually like to take a little bit of like an acrylic pen or a pencil. I'm going to slide this out of the way. The machine is off right now because it wouldn't be safe to do any of this and muck around with it while it's on. But I just take a ruler and I just need to hold that in place just a bit. And I've got my finger right here, my middle finger on the laser tip. And I'm just going to come in, and this is only for eyeballing. I would not consider this an accurate way of doing things, but I just want to mark roughly where the laser is going to be. And then same thing on the back side of it, I'm going to do right here and just get a general sense. So it seems to be about halfway through on the back side, and then it's kind of sitting a little further back here than from the front. So it's not like evenly distributed. Most of the lasers sitting in the back of the chassis here. So those are just guidelines for me. So when I place things down and I'm trying to get the laser coordinated, that I can figure out about where it's going to hit on the edge and reduce waste of my materials. So if I turn the machine back on, now that we have marked everything, and I set it to go to 300x 300y in Lightburn, you see it's just going to move along. Whee! Now, instead of moving this back and forth and trying to get it right, I just slide the project toward it. And you'll see I'm not going to go exactly over where the lines are. I'm going to kind of allow myself to have some wiggle room because you never know how much waste there will be. So we're not going to go all the way to the edge like that. We're going to do that. Get it lined up. And of course, always do a frame check. So before you begin, always do a bounds check. You can do this by just hitting the frame button in Lightburn, and it will go to all four corners and just kind of walk around the perimeter of where it's going to be doing all of the work. And so you can see here what it's doing. And I might actually want to move it over this way a little bit more. And every time I do a change like that, I want to frame it again just to make sure I didn't mess anything up. Do, 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 do. There we go. And it's a slow walker, and that's good. Some of the machines, they move so fast, it's kind of hard to make heads or tails of where it's going. And this is not a really big, complex design, so I think we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start, and you can watch it. I'm going to speed it up, though, so you're not sitting here watching it forever. It's done. It took about an hour, but it is done. And again, like, you know, diode lasers, regardless of their power capacity, really aren't meant for speed, so you just have to be a little patient. I do think, though, that diode lasers are a little better at the engraving. Just in general, I've always seen better engravings, and this is looking really darn good. So as soon as all the masking tape has stopped sticking to me, I'll lift all of that, and you can see clean cuts, nice and clean straight through there. Not a lot of ash either, even though I did go through and I cranked up the air compressor so the air assist was a little more powerful toward the end, but yeah, looks good. And I always keep those scraps. So we've got all the little pieces here. Little cats. This is what the engravings look like. And I'm going to bring the camera down a little closer so I can go through all the pieces. So this is what the pieces look like up close and personal. You can see that basically the scan lines are really nice. We got a nice deep engraving in there. I probably could have dialed back the score mark that I made, but you can see that it does very clearly create a nice dark burn around the edge of where it had done the engraving. That tightens it up quite a bit, and it does add a really nice sharp contrast and makes it look even deeper. So, you know, as far as speed goes, I did say it took about an hour to do this, but that's largely because of how much slower a diode laser is going to be in terms of getting things cut in one pass. I did have to do this about 150 millimeters per minute at 100% power to get it to cut at one pass. So that meant by saying one pass, I mean it went around once instead of twice or however many times you'd need to get it cut to avoid basically burning the edges. So you can do that to avoid getting char everywhere, but it seems to be pretty good. So what we're going to do now is put this together. The best way to put this together is just good old-fashioned wood glue. The type that I use is the Gorilla Wood glue. This is really awesome stuff. You can probably work with it for about 20 to 30 seconds as long as you don't goop it into place if you're just doing like a very thin layer. 20 to 30 seconds, about workable time, and then it really starts to fuse. Stuff doesn't take very long to dry, and it dries clear. So once I'm done with it, I don't have to worry about all these, different kinds of marks and drippings all over the place, just in case some of it squeezes through. Just to run over everything that I have the pieces that were cut out from the laser. I have a scrap piece of cardboard because I'm going to pour out the glue that I want to use onto the cardboard so that I can kind of paint it on with some Q-tips. For these little small edges like that, Q-tips are great. You can use disposable brushes if you want, but Q-tips are just fine for a little application. And just in case some of the prongs don't fit well, I keep some rough sandpaper around, just 220 or 300 grit, just enough to kind of sand things down. And I did already do that off camera because this is not a sanding lesson, it's a business card holder lesson. Now, before you glue anything, you want to familiarize yourself with the orientation of everything so that it's built correctly, because once you glue it, you can't fix it. So the cats, they need to be facing this way toward the back, and the engraved side to the outside, and then the fishtail portion is going to go in the back like this, in those three areas. And then this guy is going to be in the front. And you see it just all kind of falls apart. So the way you need to start with it is you're going to just get one end in place and then put the back end, put the front end, and let those kind of sit for a bit and dry. And then you could put the cat on the other side in. So it's more of just orienting yourself and understanding like where everything goes before you start gluing everything down. Now that I have everything ready to go and I understand how it's going to go together, I'm going to put it together and speed through it so you don't have to sit here and watch me do this for an hour.
Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow.
A nice finishing touch that you can do that I usually recommend for any of these wood products is to take a clear enamel. You can also use spray polyurethane. I do prefer this clear enamel in some cases, such as this, and you can paint this, you can spray it down with the enamel. I'm just going to go with taking a little bit of this clear enamel and spraying it down. And mind you, this is my work table, so that's why this is all shiny already, is because I just coat it like this. And this will keep, because again, if you remember, this is plywood and this edge right here is very porous, and so if you don't coat these things and let them dry, then they can actually start to rot and fall apart on you. So there we go, and that's what it looks like. And it also pretty much, it deepens and enriches a lot of the soot and the engraved portions of wood. It just depends on the kind of wood. Again, this is a basswood, so it tends to engrave darkly if I'm going to go really slow over it. And here we have a beautiful little business card stand. Of course, with cats. I'm loving it. I might even let the kids paint this for me and go back over it with a little bit of that enamel later. So that concludes the project portion of the video. If you'd like to stick around and see more of the Burnlab A20 Pro 20W diode laser, how I put it together, and what my thoughts are as someone who's a laser enthusiast these days, stick around because that part is coming up next. If not, thank you for sticking around as long as you did. Please feel free to like and subscribe and leave a comment below for what you think of the project. Great, so moving right along, I'm going to show you pretty much most of the assembly that I did, and it's not going to be really long. I'm going to time lapse it. There are plenty of diode laser assembly instructions and videos available online. There's no reason for me to cover it yet again. In general, it was a typical construction. I didn't have to really think about it or look at the instructions because at this point, this is the third one that I've had to put together by myself. That said, about the only confusing thing was the AC power adapter. I didn't realize that the split cable provided with the completely separate unit was for the air assist. I didn't realize that it plugged into that, the machine, and then the AC adapter. Sorry, it was the first time I've seen a split unit AC adapter like that, but it's fine and now it works. So a little reminder about diode lasers. They're great for wood, cork, faux leathers, real leather, but laser safe, of course, and some acrylics. And by some, of course, I mean you're not going to be able to cut through clear acrylic. Unfortunately, that's just not something diode lasers do. As nice as it would be to have one tool for all of the various jobs that we need to do with lasers, it's just not a thing. It's a fact of physics and wavelengths. So what are some positives about the Burnlab A20 Pro? It comes with the air assist. That is so critical to have with a laser of any type. The air assist really does help with the performance of a cut. It helps with a clean cut. Normally I don't put it on for engraving, but it does get the job done. I like that it comes with a console that's magnetic and it can basically drive anything that you need from this little console if you don't want to hook it into your computer and just control it directly from Lightburn. You can save the G-code out to a small card, a micro SD card, and put it into the top up here where the controller is located. When you're like me and you've got 3 or 4 lasers in a room, you can't drive them all from Lightburn. Lightburn can only drive one laser at a time, and it can lead to confusion over which laser you're telling to do what. So going along those lines, it's actually kind of nice that a lot more of these diode lasers are starting to accept SD cards of some variety. I actually do like the honeycomb and the smaller size. It also came with these rubber feet, so you don't have to slide it all over the place on accident. So these are great. You don't really need these unless you're going to be doing a lot of cutting. With this machine, I don't feel confident telling anybody you could cut thicker than 1/4 inch plywood, but you might want to give it a try. Maybe several passes could do it. I know at a 1/4 inch I was able to cut at 75 millimeters per minute at 100% power, but it took 2 passes. I don't keep 1/2 inch of wood around to see if I can cut through it because, to be honest, that's just not what I work with. So let's go over a couple of things I didn't like about it. One, I mean, it is a diode laser and it can be slow. I felt like dialing in 100% power to cut 3 millimeters of plywood was a bit much, but it does do it in one pass. It's just slower than what you would expect from a laser. Some people get spoiled by CO2 lasers or even galvo lasers that mark metal. I'm gonna shift this around so you can kind of get a feel for the next complaint. So first, it is actually a touch too exact on a 24-inch workbench. A workbench is typically going to be 24 inches deep. I'll save the jokes for later on that one, but it's kind of hard to fit on here because the legs in the back and the front are exact fit. So that's why I had it turned to its side for the majority of the video. The other thing is that it didn't come with risers, and if it did, I'd be kind of concerned as to how it would work, but this tiny area right here prevents you from being able to put larger materials underneath the laser. As a demonstration, if I were to put this 1/4 inch birch plywood on here, and I can't engrave all the way up to the front, but I want to engrave toward the back, I can't put it through because it's on the honeycomb and won't go through this little gateway here. So that's a little frustrating, but It's all good. But then the other thing is if you wanted to turn it to the side and have it go right under here, you can't because the rails will smack it. So really, if you want to do anything slightly longer, you're going to have to plan ahead and maybe put it up on your own little risers back here so that you can use light burn tools to line up your artwork and keep pushing it through. Yeah, kind of like a half-baked version of a pass-through. And that's not so much of a big problem. It just doesn't come with the risers. You can 3D print or just put it up on blocks. Just ensure that you stay somewhat safe. Even if it does have tilt detection and fire detection built into it, you still need to be super safe with these guys. Tilting back toward the I like this end of the review, I do actually like how enclosed the laser head is here. I know I mentioned in the video that lining things up was like not an exact science and I had to mark it with a pen, but that's going to be typical of any of these that you get because they all differ in the way that they try to shield your eyes from the light coming off of the laser. It's kind of like staring at the sun. Please do not do it. Get the cereal box, try to, watch the clips in a different way. It does come with safety glasses. I failed to cover that portion of it when I was doing the actual project, but you should always wear safety goggles when operating any of these machines and just don't stare at it. So what kind of laser user is this good for? Absolutely, I would say somebody who's more intermediate, someone who actually has experience with lasers in general. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time sitting here trying to go through settings and figure out how to get the thing to work, much less with the assembly portion of it. You need to have some basic construction concepts in ye old brain here to put this thing together. The other good thing about diode lasers like this, specifically this one, is that it's easy to store and tuck away so you can use this table however you need when you don't need to be diode lasering anything. The footprint is definitely smaller than a CO2 laser, which requires a buttload. I'm staring at them, but I can't show you because not the product in question. So final thoughts. It's a good little laser. It's going to be able to get some very basic work done for you. It would be a good little workhorse to set off to the side, maybe not directly plugged into your computer and using Lightburn, but to give it auxiliary jobs to set off and maybe do engravings and then take it elsewhere to get cut. It's going to be able to mark metal and do other types of materials that you can't do on a CO2 laser. So that's always nice to have something like this in your arsenal. So now you have my thoughts on it. I'm just going to play through some of the content that I captured when I did the assembly. Little thoughts sprinkled here or there throughout. Thank you for your attention. Enjoy. Congratulations! If you've made it this far through the video, that means that you actually enjoyed the content and you may actually want to watch me put the laser together. I saved this to put at the back end of the video because a lot of the same reviews go up and they all have the exact same assembly steps. Maybe you just wanted to see the laser work or go through a project. So if you're gonna stick around a little longer, let's put it together.
Do da do ba do ba do da do ba do ba do ba do da ba do ba do do be do ba da ba ba da ba.
And here's everything that was in the box. It's a lot. So you have all of the side rails, you have your Z-axis bar, and your Y-axis bar here. This is going to be Y-axis, and of course Z is always going to be your laser. All of the cabling that's required, some safety goggles. I will say most of these lasers come with safety goggles and they're not the best. There are others that you can look at that may be a little more safer, or just turn your back on it like it's, don't look at the laser. All of the instructions are available right here. I assume, I will definitely be double checking, but this has a sample pack inside, all of the belting, the tools that you need to put it together, as well as a USB key. The USB key is probably going to have some test files and other things to help me get up and running. hopefully a PDF manual. So if you're seeing this in the back half of the video, I haven't put it together yet, so we're gonna see. Lug nuts, and then one thing I call out as being really neat is they actually give you some alignment tools to help with the honeycomb. So if you need to expertly place an object down, then you can use these objects and these little widgets to put them down instead of trying to find or 3D print your own honeycomb pins. One thing to point out real quick, this is the air assist, and that's a really good thing that the machine comes with it. A lot of them don't. If you go for a lower price point, a lot of these beginner entry-level diode lasers between 10, 20 watts, they won't come with an air compressor. This is super important for your air assist so that you can actually cut efficiently. It really helps with the cutting, not so much with an engraving. Okay, everything's assembled. There's some things about this honeycomb that I want to point out as being pretty freaking awesome. So the first thing that I noticed was that they give you little rubber feet. And I know that might seem a little silly for some people, but the rubber feet are great because it's not going to slide around on you at all. And the other thing is it gives it enough clearance from the metal sheet. I don't know if that's aluminum or steel, so we'll just kind of pretend it's whatever, it's metal, hey. Anyway, when you have it on there, it won't cause as much flashback. So that means when you're cutting something on the honeycomb, then the laser won't do a little bit of a bounce back on you and then singe the underside. You get that mostly when cutting. I don't really pay too much of attention to it because if I'm cutting wood or something else is going to go on the back, like a lacquer or something. I haven't had many issues with it, but it's still nice to have. The other thing is the grooves on the sides here. I'm just double checking my camera, make sure you actually see. These grooves are what guide the butterfly, these little guys here, so you can accurately place material. This is awesome if you don't want to use masking tape to hold down something as fussy as leatherette, for example. You can accurately and very nicely place a bit of pressure on it from all corners. It does limit you though if you want to be able to do like a longer sheet, if you want something, but this little honeycomb is great if you need to hold down a certain item or ensure that when you place something down to do an engraving, it freaking stays. Now, if you're just engraving, you're gonna do that, just take away the metal sheet. You're not gonna need it because odds are you're probably gonna be pretty good at placing it unless you're as messy as me, but it's less likely to go slippity sliding all over if you have the metal under it. So if I were to put it over here, that's pretty stable as opposed to having it here, and then that allows you, like some of the more handheld fiber lasers that are coming out, that allows you to kind of like keep a space where you can just engrave like one thing at a time if you want. So all in all, it maybe took me about 30 minutes to put together, all said and done, minus any distractions or the fact that my garage is freaking hot even though I have an air conditioning unit going. Woo, don't get me started on the summers here in North Kakalaki. So not too bad. It was less work than the first one I ever put together, but that's probably because now I kind of know what I'm doing. The belt was a little fussy to kind of get into place, and I only needed to finger tighten the screws on the little knobs that are supposed to tighten the belt. It does feel a little tight, so what I'll probably do is a few tests and just see. It was tight enough on its own without having to screw down the knobs on all four corners of the belt areas. But yeah, I mean, assembly-wise, everything was pretty easy, and I didn't actually need to open up any manuals or look at other people's reviews.